I keep filming this, and it keeps turning out contrary to how I want it to. And perhaps that's a sign that I should just start talking without regard for how perfect what I'm saying is, and trust that the gist will be transmitted to you. If you have the time and the patience, my friend, I would really encourage you to watch till the end of this video, because I'm only interested in telling it like it is, even if that comes at the cost of being concise. And what I'm talking about, I think, is a real sticking point for a lot of spiritual seekers. There is such a nuance and depth to this subject that I kind of have to talk in circles to cover its full scope. This video is going to be separated into 3 components. The first talks about the non-duality community and spiritual bypassing. The second talks about New Age beliefs and, well, the folly of them. And the third talks about my own channel and gives some big updates to my approach to content creation. 2023 was the most important year of my life spiritually until this year. Prior to 2023, I had discovered authentic spirituality and had begun practicing and entered spiritual communities and had genuine insight. But in 2023, everything was turned upside down because just at the start of summer, I went through this terrible breakup, and it was like this dam of emotional suppression was just washed away by this flood of feeling. And I felt this call from the universe to sit with the pain that I was experiencing as a consequence of this breakup and grieve a relationship that I thought and hoped was going to last for the rest of this life. It was one of the most important periods for me spiritually because it was so healing. I cried so much. I felt so much doubt. I had no idea where I was going, but by the time summer finished and fall rolled around, I felt such a robust degree of strength, a level of conviction of my own worth that had never before been so clear. And as fall rolled around, I began a student teaching practicum. It was extremely difficult for a whole host of reasons. And in the middle of that practicum, I went to a contemporary spiritual community for a retreat, where I met fellow like-minded seekers and met in the flesh a spiritual content creator who a lot of you know and who I really respect. I also met a spiritual teacher who up to that point was the most awakened person I had seen in the flesh. That retreat was a green light for me to start making my own videos. So as this image of being a high school teacher disintegrated, this new image of being a spiritual teacher arose from the ashes. And as 2024 rolled around, I started a YouTube channel and did one-on-one calls and explored the non-duality community, engaged with a lot of other creators, and had a lot of wonderful conversations with so many of you. And being part of the non-duality community this year has exposed me to the approach that most people in this space take to their spiritual practice, and the advantages and the drawbacks of this approach in tandem. And what I mean by this is that I think a lot of people in the non-duality community, both practitioners and teachers alike, so to speak, have this understanding that when you heal from your trauma, you really shouldn't overthink it. You shouldn't always be trying to dig into your pain and understand where it starts and where it ends and rationalize each and every feeling you experience. And you shouldn't necessarily approach healing as this series of steps that you have to take in a super specific way to achieve some outcome which you identify as enlightenment. You don't want to trap yourself in spiritual concepts and sort of draw yourself back into this time-based, progression-based model of spirituality, which will, in some ways, I think, kind of keep you stuck churning through mud that you've already churned through. You know what I mean? I think a lot of us understand this, But then we kind of extrapolate this understanding to mean that healing work in any regard is unnecessary or is even a detriment to our spiritual practice. And so what happens then is that we experience a painful emotion and we disown this emotion. We say something like, oh, this is just the collective passing through me. This feeling is not mine to feel. Or we say, I choose to be happy. I'm already happy right now. I'm already free. And then we ignore the emotional pain which is moving through our body and kind of float above all of the pain. And we think that this floating above the pain is what spiritual work is supposed to be. We identify this refusal to look at the pain entirely as release. And I think this is spiritual bypassing. I think this is retreating into the witness instead of feeling what it's actually like to be you. And maybe I'm only saying this because I've misunderstood some teaching and I'm only starting to understand it now. But so many people that I talk to in this community feel bad for feeling negativity, or they believe that spirituality is about feeling good, that the path to freedom is just about being happy all the time. But spirituality is not about being happy. Spirituality is about truth. And happiness is a byproduct of truth. Happiness is the inevitable outcome of having the willingness to sit with your pain, to feel your feelings with a genuine curiosity of what the hell that is. It's not about labeling the feeling. It's not about trying to understand it, but it's also not about ignoring it or pretending that you're happier than you actually are. And even when you tell yourself things like, I am free right now in this moment, it's like, on one hand, it's very helpful because it, on the level of mind, helps prevent you from identifying with this sense of limitation, which can very easily dredge up more, it helps you from identifying with this sense of limitation that can, in itself, be a detriment to actually seeing the emotion. But at the same time, it can cause you to subconsciously believe that the human is something to be rejected, that limitation is something to be transcended instead of something to be embraced. Especially as a lot of us spiritual content creators, especially and including myself, talk about powers and seedic states and mystical experiences. It's like the vast majority of people don't experience these things. I don't really experience these things. You know, most of us experience a very plain human life and the ever-shifting emotions that come with that. And we need to be willing to just feel those things exactly as they are. Really, I think that spirituality is about grief. And I'm not just saying this to be negative. I really think that the juice of spirituality, of spiritual development, is grieving all of these beliefs that are falling away as a consequence of your willingness to look authentically at your own emotions. In many ways, unhappiness, fear, doubt, anger is a sign that you're really making spiritual progress, that you're really healing. Because fear and doubt and anger are what it feels like to let go of something that you have identified with. And the identity of consciousness, the identity of the witness, is just as much an identity as anything else. It's a more refined identity. It's an identity which can make you feel pretty great sometimes. It's an identity which makes for some really poetic YouTube videos. but it's also an identity that comes with its own restlessness and its own grasping and its own restriction, its own lack of freedom, its own dishonesty. It's never been complicated. And all of these spiritual concepts and New Age talk and you are the creator, it's like, it's beautiful, but I also feel like a lot of us have lost the plot. And I'm saying that from my own experience. I think that if you need to constantly tell yourself you are consciousness because you're not willing to be a human, then that says something about how honest you're being. That says something about the real priorities of your spiritual search. That says that it wasn't about truth. It was about having an exalted state. It was about being enough. It was about self-hate. I don't mean to be harsh about it. Everything I say is just insights that I've had in my own journey, you know? I think you should meditate. Sorry, it's annoying, but someone's got to say it. Like, I think meditation is very, very important for 99% of spiritual seekers. And the non-duality community kind of shits on meditation, you know? It's like, oh, you don't need to do that. That's a detriment. Like practice and discipline and trauma work and healing, like these things, you don't want to get stuck in them. You don't want to identify with them, but you also don't want to totally shun them as useless or unspiritual or too linear time progression based. Like, come on, like, but I'm getting a little ungrounded about it. And I really don't mean to single out any person or any, I'm just speaking from what I've understood about myself, you know? And I suppose this is a good time to sort of segue into the second part of this video, which is about New Age beliefs. Because the non-duality community and the New Age community, it's not even a Venn diagram at this point. It's like a single circle, you know? And there are so many promises made in the New Age community, and they market them as facts, but they're really promises. The Law of One comes to mind. It's a beautiful spiritual text. It's one that I absolutely cherish. And it's one that says a lot of things about consciousness, which, yes, are metaphysically consistent with the non-dual understanding, but are also so easy to identify with. Manifestation, creation is the same way. There is an essence to the idea of effortless creation. You know, that was in the title of a recent video of mine. That is very real, but there's all sorts of bullshit piled on top of it. I think it's totally possible that, you know, the densities and wanderers and starseeds and all these things exist. I think it's totally possible. I think it would be awesome if it did. I kind of hope it does. But again, if you need to tell yourself that you're not from the planet Earth in order to feel like your life is interesting enough to live, then maybe it's time to let go of all of that and just feel what it's like to hate yourself. If you need to tell yourself that you are the creator, is that really something that is serving you? Or is it just a distorted means of grasping for a sense of control that was never yours to have in the first place? If you need to tell yourself that you were never born and you cannot die, even if there is a heart to that is definitely true, why are you so scared of dying? Why do you need to convince yourself that you're not going to die in order to be okay with death? So much of the stuff, the noise of this community that I have pushed is a rejection of the human. It is perverse spiritual ego. So perverse that my phone runs out of storage in the middle of filming. Please don't take this as me saying that you have to constantly feel like shit. It's not about that. It's just about honoring the truth of your experience right now, regardless of how good or bad it feels. Pleasure and pain both have to be embraced, and it's only by embracing them that you transcend them and arrive at peace, at true freedom. Life and death both have to be embraced. Life and death themselves are two sides of the same coin, and reality swims between them. That is to say that everything that can be proven with logic, everything that appears metaphysically consistent, its opposite will always be proven. There is a profound invitation to come full circle and go back to the basics of feeling your way through this life. It takes tremendous self-honesty to really liberate yourself from this straitjacket of ego. But the only way out is through. Honesty and freedom are the same thing. And honesty means going into the dream, feeling the dream, loving the dream, being the dream. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't watch non-duality YouTube videos. I want you to watch this one. You can watch whatever you want. And a lot of them are really, really helpful. A lot of teachers on here say things which reflect genuine insight and which can guide you down this path. Personally, I think it's really hard for me right now to engage with the non-duality community and the New Age community with anything but the lightest of touches, the heaviest grain of salt. Because something about any sort of concept feels like it creates a fundamental dishonesty away from my willingness to feel. Because if I'm honest with myself, there's a lot of pain. Pretty much every one of my subscribers has a lot of pain. Your favorite non-duality creator has a lot of pain. It's beautiful. It's something to be cherished. It's something to be loved. It's something to be seen. It feels like I and most of us already have the tools we need, and it's time to just apply them. Put down the phone and trust in the healing power of your own awareness, your own clear seeing of yourself. And I suppose this is a great segue to the third part of this video, which is my own content creation. I've learned so much over these past 9-10 months. That learning has become very concentrated during the 70-ish days that I've been here in rural Scotland. And I think that I don't think I want to be a spiritual teacher, at least not right now. I was in a Discord community where somebody said that spirituality becomes the last ego project. And what that often means is that a lot of people feel this urge at the start of their path to become a teacher, because they feel like they wouldn't be fulfilled by doing anything else. But then as they deepen their insight, they become more objective with how they see themselves, and they start to understand where their true strengths lie. And then the need to teach the need to be a spiritual person becomes a lot less gripping. I think during my time in Scotland, I felt that on one hand, my platform was really starting to grow. But at the same time, all of these concepts I had of who I was were starting to fall away. And so I felt pressured to maintain the platform while not being emotionally clear. And what that meant was that some of the videos I made, even though they reflect genuine insight and have an essence to them which is true, they kind of lead people in the wrong direction a little bit. The manifestation video, for instance, there is a truth to it. When you flow in unison with the Tao flows in unison with you. But there's also so much nonsense piled on top of it that you kind of get lost in the noise. Or the forget about enlightenment video. The point of that video is just to say that you shouldn't beat yourself up for whatever stage you're at in the spiritual journey, but then it gets so all over the place. It's not just that I'm animated, but that I'm animated and I'm saying things which kind of aren't helpful or are just flat out wrong. It feels so much more truthful to delete most of my videos, even if they've helped people, to stop doing one-on-one calls, maybe stop doing tarot readings, I don't know. Totally remake my website, if not delete it, and start fresh. And make YouTube videos that just talk about my authentic experiences as a seeker. To engage with you without this subtle hierarchy of YouTuber and consumer, of teacher and student. I've had people in my comments call me master. I've had people in one-on-one calls think that I'm an enlightened sage. That says something about the kind of ethos you take on when you opt to be a spiritual teacher. When you start selling services where you're coaching other people on spirituality, not only are you adding to a very oversaturated genre, but you have to really be ready for that. And I think that 95% of creators on here, including myself, are not ready for that. Maybe that's projecting. I don't know, but I feel like it's all a little bit of the blind leading the blind sometimes. That's as outwardly critical as I want to get. I'm just going to make videos talking about my human experiences. There's not going to be any pretense or agenda to them. They're going to flow where they flow. And I'll be sharing genuine spiritual insights. I'll be talking about things that worked for me, things that haven't. I'll be talking to you guys, forming actual connections and relationships without always selling you something. I'll be able to pause for more than 30 seconds in a video without making a jump cut necessarily or restarting because, people aren't going to watch past the 3-minute mark unless I, Is that everything? I feel like I'm forgetting something. Yes, that's right. I leave Scotland on Saturday. I have a little bit more traveling, but for the most part, I'm done. I'm going to be filming a video just before I leave where I reflect on everything that I've learned here. It's going to be really raw. I'm really excited to make it. I've been looking forward to it for a whole month. And if you've been watching all the way to the end of this video, I hope to see you in that one. Because it would just be cool to talk to you and to share my experience and to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for everything you have taught me. Thank you beyond words. This has been so deeply meaningful. I cherish this platform. I cherish you. Thank you. Thank you so much.